An mysterious spiritualist named Baba Bamgboshe has been dragged before the Ife elders to answer for the destruction of Ebony. Her family claims he has used charms to lock her mind, but the man has just fired back with a truth so heavy it's shaking the palace foundations. Is Ebony a victim of dark magic, or is her own obsession the very thing killing her? A short prayer for my crown gist friends and families. May every tongue rising against your peace be silenced, and may the truth set you free from every hidden trap today. Amen. Welcome to Crown Gist. If you want the raw, unfiltered truth behind the palace walls, you are exactly where you need to be. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button right now and join the Crown Gist family so you never miss a heartbeat of this royal drama. A quick note, my Crown Gist friends and families, we have massive respect for the Yoruba culture. Because of this, we use special fictional names for certain sacred rituals and titles. Keep watching and everything will make perfect sense as the story unfolds. The atmosphere in the sacred hall of the Ife elders was heavy enough to suffocate a man. The scent of ancient wood and burning incense filled the air as the elders sat in a semicircle, their faces like stone. In the center of the room stood Baba Bamgboshe. He didn't look like a man who was afraid of the judgment of men. He stood tall, his eyes scanning the room with a gaze that seemed to see things others could not. Ebony's family had called for this emergency meeting. They were vibrating with anger, their voices high and sharp as they presented their case to the Ife elders. "This man is the reason our daughter has lost her way," they cried out. They told the council that Ebony was no longer the woman they used to know. They alleged that Baba Bamgboshe was using his spiritual charms to hold Ebony captive, manipulating her thoughts and making her do things that were causing chaos in the palace. They claimed that Baba Bamgboshe had been feeding Ebony fake promises, telling her she will be the greatest queen Ife has ever seen. Because they share a distant bloodline, the family argued that his spiritual influence over her was unbreakable. They even suggested that the great lion, the Kabiyesi himself, had seen this happening but chose to stay silent because he no longer cared for Ebony's well-being. But as the accusations flew like arrows, Baba Bamgboshe did something unexpected. He began to laugh. It wasn't a loud or happy laugh. It was a deep, mocking sound that made the hair on the back of the elders' necks stand up. When he finally spoke, his voice was like thunder. "You should be kneeling down to thank me," he shouted, his voice echoing off the ancient walls. "Instead of dragging me before the council to make a scapegoat out of me, you should be on your knees in the dust. You should thank me because I am the reason you still have your daughter today. I am the reason Ebony is still breathing. I am the reason she is in good health. If I were not there, do you think she would have survived this long?" The Ife elders leaned in, shocked by the man's boldness. Baba Bamgboshe turned his gaze towards Ebony's paternal family. He reminded them of their own history, that they come from a lineage of very powerful spiritualists. This, he said, is why people call her Mama Nawa. It is in her blood. He revealed that every time Ebony returned from the UK, she didn't go to the palace first. She went straight to him for cleansing and spiritual fortification. "I saw her as my mate," Baba continued, his voice hardening. "Everything I have done was to protect her. But let me tell you the truth that you are all too afraid to face. Ebony's biggest problem is not my charms. Her problem is her own heart. Her level of jealousy and envy is a sickness. She's so obsessed with the great lion that she is ready to bulldoze anyone out of her way. And you, her family, you know this truth, but you prefer to live in denial." The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Baba Bamgboshe was peeling back the layers of the palace drama, exposing the dark obsession that he claims is driving Ebony to the brink of madness. He told the elders that this wasn't the first time the family had looked for someone to blame. They had accused other women in the past, always looking for an external enemy to explain away Ebony's own toxic behavior. "You went to do your own findings," he snared, "and your findings told you she was being attacked. But did they tell you that she is the one attacking herself? Did they tell you that she is fighting a battle she will never win? Even as we speak, Ebony does not know that she is shooting herself in the leg with every move she makes." He then brought up the jewel, the woman who has become the target of Ebony's most intense hatred.
Baba Bambushe revealed that he had warned Ebony many times to stay away from that woman. He had asked her, "What has the jewel done to you to deserve this hatred?" I told her plainly. Abbas whispered, his voice dripping with intensity. I told her the jewel has a protective shield that no human hand can pierce. It is not palace gossip, it is the window of the unseen. I warned her that if she kept trying to burn that woman, the fire would turn back and consume her. I was the one standing between Ebony and the fire she started. I was her shield, and yet you bring me here to face the Ife elders. The exposure was complete. The family members were speechless, and the elders looked at Ebony with a new sense of worry. The secrets were no longer hidden in the dark. They were out in the light, and the truth was more terrifying than anyone had imagined.
The Ife elders began to murmur among themselves, their beads clinking as they shifted in their seats. The atmosphere had shifted from a trial of a herbalist to a full-blown exposure of the darkness lurking within the palace walls. Baba Bambushe did not back down. He stepped even closer to the center of the hall, his shadow stretching long across the floor. "You call me a brainwasher," Baba said, his voice dropping to a low, vibrating tone that made the ground feel like it was shaking. "But let me tell you about the midnight hours. Let me tell you about the times Ebony would come to me, her eyes red with a fire that no water could quench. She didn't come to me because I forced her. She came because the bitterness in her soul was eating her alive, and she needed somewhere to pour that poison." He looked at the family members who were now avoiding his eyes. "You say I promised her she would be the greatest? No. I told her that to be great, she must first have a clean heart. But she didn't want to hear about peace. She only wanted to hear about power. She wanted to know how to move the great lion's heart away from every other woman. She wanted to know why the jewel was still standing despite everything she had tried." One of the elders, a man with white hair and a staff carved from ancient wood, cleared his throat. "Baba Bambushe, you speak of a protective shield around the jewel. You speak of things that happen in the dark. Are you saying that Ebony has been actively seeking to harm those within the Kabiesi's house?" Baba Bambushe laughed, a dry, rattling sound. "Seek to harm? She has done more than seek. She has planned, she has plotted, and she has moved. But what she doesn't understand, and what you all refuse to accept, is that the Palace of Ife is not just a building, it is a spiritual ground. There are laws here that were written before our grandfathers were born. When you move against a soul that has been placed there by destiny, you are moving against the ancestors themselves." He turned his attention back to Ebony's father's side. "You talk about your spiritual lineage. You call her Mama Loa because you think it makes her powerful. But power without character is a curse. I told her, Ebony, your daughter wants the great lion for herself alone. That is the truth you are refusing to say. You all know it. The palace staff knows it. The walls themselves know it. But instead of dealing with her character, you are pointing fingers at me. You are pointing fingers at the jewel. You are looking for a scapegoat because it is easier than accepting that jealousy has eaten too deep into your bloodline." The intensity in the room was reaching a breaking point. Baba Bambushe was no longer just defending himself. He was stripping away the prestige of the family, piece by piece. He spoke about the many times he had to perform rituals not to harm others, but to cool the madness that was rising in Ebony's spirits. Every time she moved close to that fire, she was burning herself, he repeated, his voice hardening like stone. Every time she planned an evil act, something followed her back home. And who was the one standing between her and the consequences? Who was the one stopping the spirits of the night from claiming her because of the doors she opened with her own hatred? It was me, the same Baba Bambushe you want to lock up today. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Then he asked the elders a question that felt like a cold wind blowing through the hall. Do you want me to start exposing what she has been doing to other women inside that palace? Do you want me to name the names of those who have suffered because she couldn't stand to share the spotlight?
A gasp went through the crowd. Some of the Ife elders sat up straight, their eyes wide with curiosity and fear. They had heard the rumors about the other wives, the sudden illnesses, the misfortunes, the tears shared in private. But to hear it confirmed by the man who had been her closest spiritual confidant was something else entirely. I have kept quiet, Baba whispered. I have covered her secrets. I protected her reputation when I didn't have to. I did it because of the blood we share. But since you have brought me here, since you have summoned me before this council to lie against me, then the bag of secrets must be ripped open. Let the world see what is inside. At this point, the family members were visibly trembling. They had come to destroy Baba Bambushe, but they had accidentally opened a door to their own daughter's destruction. The findings they thought would exonerate Ebony were now being used as evidence of her own undoing.
The Ife elders were now leaning forward, their eyes darting between Baba Bambushe and the family of Ebony. The air in the council chamber was no longer just heavy, it was electric. Every word Baba spoke was like a lightning bolt hitting the floor. The family members who had been so loud at the beginning were now shrinking into their seats, whispering among themselves, trying to figure out how to stop the man they had unleashed. "You speak of other women," one of the Ife elders said, his voice trembling slightly. "Are you saying that the misfortunes we have heard about in the palace were not accidents? Are you saying there's a hand behind the tears of the other wives?" Baba Bambushe stepped into the light, his face looking like a mask of ancient bronze. The palace is a place of many rooms, but it is also a place of many mirrors. What you send out always finds its way back to you. I warned Ebony. I told her, you cannot take the great lion for yourself by force, but she would not listen. She was convinced that if she could just remove the obstacles, the great lion would see only her. She didn't realize that by trying to remove those obstacles, she was creating a mountain of debt, spiritual debt that she could never pay back. He turned to the family again, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You call her Mama Lawa, as if that title is a shield, but your spiritual lineage cannot protect someone who breaks the laws of the land. You say I manipulated her thoughts. How can I manipulate a woman who is already blinded by her own envy? Every time she went to the UK and came back, she didn't come to me to ask for peace. She came to me to ask for more fire. She wanted to be the only sun in the sky, forgetting that the palace is a galaxy of many stars." Baba Bambushe then dropped a detail that made the elders' blood run cold. He spoke about the jewel again. But this time, he spoke about the direct attacks Ebony had attempted. "There was a night," he whispered, "a night when the moon was hidden and the winds were high. Ebony came to me with a heart full of blackness. She wanted a way to pierce the shield of the jewel. She was desperate. She was ready to give anything. I looked at her and I saw not a queen, but a woman drowning in her own bitterness." He continued, "I told her that night, if you move against this woman, the ancestors will strike you. The shield around the jewel is not made of charm. It is made of her innocence and the protection of the great lion's fathers." Ebony screamed at me. She called me a coward. She said if I wouldn't help her, she would find another way. And she did. She went behind my back. She tried things that are forbidden in this land. And when the blowback came, when she started falling ill, when her plans started failing, when the great lion started looking at her with suspicion, she ran back to me, crying for help. The room was filled with the sharp intakes of breath. Baba Bambushe was revealing that Ebony had been paying a double game, using him as a shield when things went wrong, but ignoring his warnings when she wanted to do evil. "You all knew she was crossing lines," Baba shouted, his voice cracking like a whip. "You saw the items she brought back from her travels. You heard I talk about who she wanted out of the palace. You didn't stop her. You didn't warn her. You only came to me when the fire she started began to burn your own fingers. And now you want to tell these elders that it is my fault? That I, who have been her only protector, am the one destroying her?" The intensity was so much that one of the younger family members stood up to leave, but the Ife elders ordered him to sit back down. No one was leaving this hall until the truth was fully bared. Baba Bambushe wasn't just defending his life, he was tearing down a wall of lies that had protected Ebony for years. He was showing the council that the manipulation they spoke of was actually his attempt to hold back a flood of consequences that Ebony had invited upon herself. The tension in the Ife Elders Hall had reached a fever pitch. Baba Bambushe was no longer just a man defending himself. He was like an ancient spirit delivering a final judgment. He took a deep breath, his eyes scanning every corner of the room, looking at the palace officials and the family members who were now literally shaking in their seats. "You want to know the real truth?" Baba asked, his voice echoing with a haunting clarity. "You want to know why you are so desperate to blame me? It's because if you don't blame me, you have to admit that Ibioni is the architect of her own house of pain. She is obsessed. She is ready to sacrifice anyone to be the only one for the great lion. And what is aching me most is that you, her family, know this truth, but you live in denial." He paused, then dropped a question that landed like a heavy stone in a quiet pond. "Do you want me to start exposing what she has been doing to other women inside that palace? What about the health of the others? People are starting to whisper about Dr. Sapphire. They are asking why Dr. Sapphire has been having miscarriages left, right, and center. They are asking why she is constantly sick, losing her strength, while Ibioni remains untouched. Is it also Ibioni's hand in that? Is that the next secret you want me to spill?" The room exploded into low whispers. The mention of Dr. Sapphire's struggles was like pouring petrol on a fire. People were looking at each other, their eyes wide. The elders had to hit their staffs on the ground to bring back order. Baba Bambushe just stood there, his face cold and unmoving. "I have covered her secrets for too long. I protected her reputation because of the blood we share. I warned her privately again and again. I told her that a heart full of bitterness cannot hold a crown for long. But instead of listening, she thought she was more powerful than the laws of the ancestors. And now, because the pressure from the youth, the elders, and the women of the land is too much, because people want her out of the palace, you bring me here to lie against me? You want to exonerate her by making me the villain?" He looked at the family elders one last time. "If not for me, this woman would not even be standing here today. She would have died because of her own heart, not because of the jewel, not because of the great lion, but because of the darkness she allowed to grow inside her. The embarrassment you feel today is not my doing. It is the result of the truth finally coming home to roost." The council was in total disarray. The elders realized that if they allowed Baba Bambushe to continue, he would mention names and secrets that could burn the entire palace down. They had enough. The family's plan to make him a scapegoat had backfired so badly that they were now looking for a place to hide. They had no choice but to let Baba Bambushe go. But the damage was already done. The whispers had started and they weren't going to stop anytime soon. Crown Gist friends and families, this is where the matter stands for now. But before we go, I must remind you all that everything we have discussed here is based on reports and rumors making the rounds on social media. These are alleged stories and unverified information, so please do not take them as absolute facts yet. We are simply bringing you the updates as they fly across the digital space.